Our mother, Savta, and great-grandmother, Dvora Goldgraber, was born July 10th, 1921, in Jerusalem's Jewish Quarter. Her parents, Rivka Broide and Avram Yaakov Epstein, met for an arranged marriage. They married in Jerusalem in 1920. When baby Dvora was 6 weeks old, her father, Avram, who was only 21 years old, left the family. Dvora and her mother moved to live with widowed Savta Zelda Broide in Petach Tikva, which was a Mosheva colony that her grandfather, Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Broide, helped to establish many years earlier as an etrog grower, dayan, and merchant. He died in 1914, 7 years before Dvora was born. Dvora's mother, Rivka, became very ill from 1923. She frequently traveled abroad to seek doctors and medical treatments. Dvora said in her 8th decade that she learned that I can only rely on myself since I was 3 years old because her mother was absent through much of Dvora's childhood and her father abandoned her from infancy. These two traumatic experiences forged much of her need to control and lead and serve others to overcome huge emotional pain. Savta Zelda, a young widow, was a most dominant, idyllic figure in Dvora's life. Zelda and Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Broide had 2 daughters, Sarah, born around 1890, and Rivka, born 1894, in Chicago. According to Dvora, Zelda had suffered a brutal attack from Turkish soldiers in Ottoman-ruled Petach Tikva, leaving her disabled, and therefore they temporarily moved to Chicago, where Dr. Philip Fagin, Zelda's brother-in-law, helped the family through the births and early childhood of the 2 cherished daughters. When these little girls reached maturity, both of them had poor shidduchim in Palestine. Sarah's husband deserted shortly after the birth in 1909 of their only child, Leah. Sarah was hospitalized in America during much of her postnatal adult life. Leah was raised and lived in the same compound as Dvora, Rivka, and Zelda in Petach Tikva. Aisha Fayumi was little Dvora's nanny. We jump forward many years now to a story Savta told Ayelet in 2002 about Savta Fayumi's family. It's a moving story explaining Dvora's Arabic and affection for her Arab neighbors and friends. Please see attachment 1. After 1967 and the reconnection with Mohammed Fayumi, whose grandson was very sick, Dvora and Dr. Moshe arranged for him to be treated at Hadassah Hospital, and some amateur photographer, maybe Dr. Goldgraber, captured these photos of the proud adopted grandmother Dvora. Dvora attended a Beit Yaakov school, which is ultra-Orthodox, until age 12. She said that because she had no father, she had a Yankale Melamed, a private big brother and father figure who supported, taught, and guided her. He died when she was 12 years old. She decided if he could die, there is no God. She tested by eating pork and going sleeveless, and declared being a devout atheist. Savta Dvora then attended a much better school, Gimnasia Herzliya, for only 1 year. Her favorite teacher was the gifted poet and writer David Shimoni, who taught her Tanakh and literature. At the time, Shimoni was a friend and peer of Shaul Chernichovsky and Shai Agnon, who later received the Nobel Prize for Literature. She was in the agricultural stream at Gimnasia Herzliya and spoke nostalgically about her memories of Mikveh Israel Agricultural School for the rest of her life. But the financial burden was too great on Zelda, and there was no free public education. So she learned on her own and matriculated early by age 17. Her father saw her name in the newspaper and asked to meet her for the first time. She refused him after many years of feeling rejected by him. Chaim Abravaya was a close friend of Dvora's since her teen years. He took many pictures of her in their youth. He became a noted translator of French and German literature to Hebrew. Savta applied to Beilinson Nursing School by age 17. Before nursing school, she took over the management of their orchard and manipulated the harvesting and marketing of the oranges to out-scheme their broker, selling at much better prices. She decided then that she really wanted to study economics and marketing. Because they lived in severe poverty, she decided to study nursing, because it was the only profession available to her that was free of tuition, providing free room, board, and uniforms. She would take food from the dining room to bring to her Savta Zelda, who was already diabetic. Dvora excelled and became head nurse of her department immediately after graduation as registered nurse at age 20. She met your Saba Moshe at work, and a 9-month courtship followed. Moshe, not knowing what became of his family in the war-torn Holocaust, told her that he might be in mourning and avoided all music according to Orthodox Jewish practice. In spite of that, she bought 2 tickets to the opera La Belle Hélène by Offenbach. He accepted the invitation. She was living in the nurse's dormitory with no entrance to men. The following morning he serenaded her, whistling the theme line of the opera. She came out to the balcony, and that became the family whistle which escorted us through the years. Or, for short, it was, or for those who didn't know how to whistle yet, it was fo feet. They married November 9th, 1943, in a small cafe in Tel Aviv. 17 people attended, including themselves, the rabbi, and Savta Zelda. Dvora wore a brown suit. Saba Moshe had heard no news from any of his family for 2 years already. He chose to get revenge over Hitler by marrying on the 4th year marking Kristallnacht. Savta volunteered to the Haganah, which had headquarters at Gimnasia Herzliya, from age 13. When young, she spoke fluent Falachi Arabic, so she smuggled weapons, wearing Arab schoolgirl costumes, and going by bus to deliver the weapons. British officers had no reason to stop an Arab schoolgirl. Now we turn to Savta's gun story, written by Yaakov in 2021, about her illegal gun, which she kept in an old baby formula can. It's an interesting story. Please read attachment number 2. Savta Dvora always wanted many children because she always felt the need for siblings. The young couple lived in Tel Aviv at Gnesim 3 in the basement. Their first child was born and died in 1944. Chaim was born August 16th, 1945. Yaakov was born August 25th, 1946. Shlomo, born 1947 and died 1949. In 1945, Dvora's mother, Rivka Broide, died and was buried in Petach Tikva's Segula Cemetery. In 1946, Savta Zelda died and was buried next to Rivka, also marked Broide on her grave. Dvora was very busy raising their children and involved in Haganah activities in Tel Aviv and supportive of Saba's professional aspirations. They moved to 64 Ben Yehuda Street, a bigger and sunlit apartment. In 1949, the celebration of Israel's Independence Day parade that did not parade because all of the people were in the streets and the authorities decided that it was too hazardous. Rivka Gita, born March 16, 1950. In 1953, for 1 year, Dr. Moshe went to Chicago for professional enrichment. Savta struggled to make ends meet and raise the children by herself. Since her school days at home, young Dvora had developed a hobby of knitting that became a supplemental income for her throughout the rough financial times beginning with her teen years. When struggling, basically functioning as a single mother, she sold socks for newborns to stores providing gifts and baby products, and gave private nursing treatments. Throughout her life and into her old age, knitting provided her with a productive and creative outlet for her unique energies. When relatively comfortably settled in Jerusalem, she took a macrame course at the Israel Museum. The results adorned her home. 1955, Saba returned to Chicago, and in 1956, Dvora sailed with the 3 children to New York aboard the SS Zion. Then we all traveled together with Abba to live in Chicago, quote, for 1 year, unquote. After the 3 kids were settled into school, Savta began working full-time at Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago while Saba was a student and low-salaried visiting academic visa physician, student, teacher, and scientist. Savta worked full-time at University of Chicago Billings Hospital, choosing night shift to earn a higher salary from around 1959. In 1963, Chaim left Chicago after graduating from the University of Chicago Laboratory High School and returned to Israel as a lone soldier. Saba, Savta, and Rivka left Chicago in 1964 to Tel Aviv, and later to the Hansen Hospital compound at Marcus 17 in Jerusalem. Yaakov stayed alone at University of Chicago to complete college before returning to Israel. During the Six-Day War, Dvora was the only adult or nurse to organize, calm, and feed all the 27 residents at Hansen Hospital. In 1967, Dvora's step-siblings, Aryeh, Yudit, and Zerach, reached out to her for the first time after the Six-Day War because of special celebrations. Yeshivat Torat Chaim was found intact due to excellent devotion between the head yeshiva, Rabbi Zerach Ephraim Epstein, and its Muslim caretaker from before 1948. There was also a special medal for bravery for Zerach Epstein, the grandson of his namesake. And then Dvora begins digesting the complications of her family of origin and develops a friendship with her half-brother Aryeh. Dvora became a proud grandmother with the birth of Tal, her first grandchild. We see some pictures showing Dvora, the Bint al-Balad. She enjoys conserving water throughout the years, and here she is using the garden to wash dishes. Samir became a weekly helper that Dvora took on when he was only 12 years old. For over 6 years, she nurtured a relationship with him and he learned to love books while he dusted them for our family. Liz helped him apply to American colleges, and he left to college in New York, leaving his cousin Najah to continue his work for Dvora. For years, Samir maintained a distant connection with her, completing his PhD and founding and writing an anti-Israel propaganda newspaper. She asked him not to send her more blouses, but just to write our story in your newspaper. Did he? Najah continued helping Dvora devotedly with household work once a week for many years. Najah, who lives in Kalandia, has a dear place in our hearts, but he disappeared during political tensions. Dvora is a friendly neighbor of the Hansen patients and staff from 1965 to the year 2000, when the inpatient facility closes. From around 1968, Dvora became part of the administrative leadership of the Ministry of Health's nursing division. She became supervisor of several nursing schools. Here we see a picture of her at the Shari Tzedek Hospital speaking. In 1970 to 72, she took on a military government assignment to open the first Arabic language nursing school in the Middle East.
My name is Afaf Nicola Awad. Originally, I am from Beit Sahur, but now I came to England to further my education. I met Mrs. Dvora Goldgraber in 1970. And I was working in New Ramallah Hospital as a staff nurse and midwife. She came to interview me, and she accepted me for a course for teaching, to be able to teach student nurses. We were 5 of us, and 4 of us actually from Beit Sahur, and 1 from Jerusalem. She was extremely good organizer, and she had a lot of knowledge, and she organized for us for lecturers to come from both sides, from the Arab side and from the Jewish side. She was a good leader. We had such a lovely time with her, really. The whole year was beautiful. We worked as a team together, and she treated us very nicely. And that time, for me, I wanted to come to England to further my education. And that time, my brother was in Germany with his family. So I asked her if she can help me to bring them, to give like papers for reunion, because my parents were old and I wanted somebody to look after them. And actually she helped me, and I will never forget that. And my parents loved her when we finished the course for a year. And we learned quite a lot. She is extremely knowledgeable. And they taught us the art of interviewing and the management and how really to teach student nurses. She worked extremely hard to establish a school which is from nothing to something, because it was boarding school, and she had then we interviewed the student nurses. They have to sleep. We have to arrange for the sleeping, for their food, for the lecturer. So really, she did very well. I don't think anybody can do like what she did, and you should be proud of her. I stayed only for a year, and she used to come with Dr. Bredant to inspect, to see what's happening. But everybody liked her. We loved her very much. To be honest, I loved her very much. For me, I will never forget her.
Thank you very much for sharing all that, and my blessings to you.
Okay, my name is Sohela Michelle Salameh. I am originally, or my family is originally from Jaffa. I was born in Ramallah. Your mom in Bethlehem, June 1971. And that's why when I was interviewed by her for a post for administrative post for her new project in Ramallah, which is opening of Ibn Sina Nursing School. It was a boarding school, and it was its first kind in the West Bank. At that time, Mrs. Goldgraber was running a training course for 5 of senior nurses that she chose. They were to become instructors for Ibn Sina Nursing School. Now, she started in Bethlehem with 5 senior nurses whom she chose herself, and they were training them to be instructors for the school. Now, she was doing all this in Bethlehem, but the school was going to be opened in Ramallah, interviewing the students, preparing the curriculum for their teaching, mostly in Arabic. And then she was interviewing doctors also from hospitals who were to be also instructors. I went to be interviewed by her. I didn't at that time. I wanted to just leave the country and go abroad. My father convinced me, okay, let's go, let's see. This is an administrator job. It's a good job. Let's go and see. So we went to Bethlehem to be interviewed by her. And the first and second interview, my father did all the talking for me. I wouldn't even open my mouth. She was irritated. She was really irritated, but at the same time, patient and polite. Courteously, she told him, please have her come for another interview by herself. Don't come with her. I went the third interview, and I opened up a little bit with her. I don't know what she liked in me, but surprisingly, she hired me. And that's in the beginning. Now, she was challenging me afterwards. She wasn't friendly with me. She put me in a room full of papers, documents, scattered all over. So, and she didn't even check on me for 2 weeks. So she came rushing to the room one day, and she wanted an important document for one of her meetings. She asked for it, and I said, it's here. She didn't open her mouth, but she was looking, to see what's going on, everything organized, everything in files. She found her document instantly, and she left. She didn't say nothing. After her meeting, she came and she said, listen, I'm taking you home today. I'm driving you to Ramallah. She drove me to Ramallah. She met my family. And that was the moment we bonded. We were talking on the road all the time, on the driving. And then she met my family. They loved her. Especially, she built, let me say, a strong friendship with my family too, especially my father. And that's how it started.
How good was her Arabic?
It was good. It was good. She was Bint al-Balad. Ibn Sina wasn't in Bethlehem. Oh. It was just preparation for the project in Bethlehem, getting the staff nurses or the senior nurses ready. Now, the opening was in Ramallah. The instructors course, like I told you, lasted 1 year and it ended. I just started like a couple months prior to the instructors course ending. Now, the school was opened in Ramallah in November 1971. And then Mrs. Dvora G supervised this project until completely accomplished successfully. Then she delegated all the responsibilities and she left, it was November 1972. Even Sina Nursing School still exists, but in a different building. Now it's becoming a college, granting bachelor degrees to nurses and midwives.
Very nice.
And also in 1990, they opened a branch in Bethlehem for males.
Oh.
And it applied the same curriculum of its mother school in Ramallah. She left a legacy. She was strong, excellent leader, a coordinator with a great mind and personality. She had a strong personality, very determined and committed to the end. As for her kindness, she had a heart of gold. Mrs. Goldgraber was the mother that I never had. She treated me like you, her own daughter. And she always went out of her way to help others. And I am indebted so much to her. No, she just wanted things done. And she was perfectionist. So you had to do what she wanted you to do. That's when we understood each other very well. I don't know why. I didn't need to work hard even to understand her. After that, my father got sick. He was diagnosed with cancer. I was friendly also with your dad, Dr. Goldgraber, God bless his soul. So they came to the house. They admitted my father to Hadassah. They helped us exactly like a family. And they would visit him all the time. For the 4 years that he was sick, they stood by us exactly like a family. And in his last days, Mrs. Goldgraber would come every day. She would cook food for us and for my dad. And she would sit by his bed, feeding him.
Wow.
You know, this tells you how kind this woman was. She was something. I never met any person like her, never. I admired her. Politics never existed between us, never. Mm-hmm. We never had even the discussion, about politics. Mm-hmm. And that's why also it was more like family than anything else. So I want to mention that not only Mrs. Goldgraber was my friend, also your dad. I used to come a lot to your house. They would visit us. And I sometimes would stay overnight. We talked, we read books, we had dinners together. We went to Tel Aviv. We were all the time together. It was the best time of my life. Yeah. Both of them, I'm telling you, both of them played a big part in my life. Especially she. My memories of her is a gift or a special gift that I will treasure all my life. I just want to end it with saying something to her grandchildren. I'd like to say to them, you should be proud of your grandma, who was an incredible woman and who left a memorable and long-lasting legacy. And I love her very much.
Thank you, Suhaila. Please see attachment 3, which is interesting research from Suhaila and her sister Samia about the Ibn Sina Nursing School. In 1972, Dvora's father, Rabbi Avraham Yaakov Epstein, his remains were brought from France for reburial to Givat Shaul Cemetery. It was my first funeral ever, watching Ima with the tear in her blouse, and from the father she had resented most of her life, and the grandfather that I never met. In 1978, after Saba retired from Hadassah Hospital's newly closed allergy clinic, and Dvora completed her projects with Ministry of Health, Saba was asked to urgently open allergy clinics with Kupot Cholim Klalit and Leumit. There was no salary line available for hiring a nurse, and no clinic could be opened without one. So for the first time in many years, they worked together, initially Safta volunteering, until the bureaucracy of salary line was resolved. So they worked together, providing top quality service to about 2,000 allergy patients in Jerusalem. Safta passed away at the Shaarei Tzedek Hospital in Jerusalem on Shabbat, November 15th, 2008, 17th of Cheshvan, 5769. She was buried in the same grave that she herself had arranged with your Saba Moshe at the Givat Shaul cemetery.